Welcome to Master the Science of Miracles, where we will explore the ancient science of transforming your ideas into your physical reality. Join us on a thrilling adventure that pushes beyond the limits of conventional beliefs about what it truly means to be human, as we unravel the truth about how powerful you really are. In each episode, we will discover the elements of the reliable, repeatable, step-by-step process for making the miraculous and ordinary part of your life. This is your portal to the extraordinary. So let the adventure begin. And now, here's your host, Ron Matthews.
Over 10,000 years ago, a society existed that had completely eliminated all illness, poverty, and animosity from their culture. The people of this society had a science that was nearly lost to antiquity. It was a science of harmonizing the three parts that all human beings are made of. And they freely shared this science with anyone that asked them for it. And so their influence began to grow and to spread. And as other people became exposed to this science, learned this ancient science, they too were able to free themselves from those three illnesses or those three demons that have plagued humanity since the beginning of history: illness, poverty, and animosity. This freedom from these three things spread like wildfire, and as it did, it began to arouse the anger, the suspicion, and the fear of the leaders of that day, because any group of people, any society, any culture that is not living in fear of getting sick, of being poor, or of being attacked is nearly impossible to control or to oppress. And so, as a matter of survival, these original keepers of this ancient science realized that the time was approaching when they and their descendants will be persecuted for no other reason than that they possessed this science, which was capable of freeing humanity. And so they scattered to the four corners of the earth. And where they have turned up, where the descendants of these keepers of the ancient science turned up, were Tibet, northern Africa on the border of Morocco, Polynesia, and parts of the desert southwestern region of the United States. Now, before we continue, I'd like you to imagine, try to imagine if you would, what would your life be like if you never had to worry about money, about ever getting sick, or about any kind of animosity, or having to worry about going to war, or sending your children to war. What must that be like? Just imagine that for a moment, if you would. Now, what was different about these people? What was different about these keepers of the ancient science, that they were able to so completely transform their culture? Well, I can answer that question in one word: nothing. They were no different than anyone else. They're no different than you are. The difference is that they did not have a media that was constantly telling them that they were anything other than the amazing supernatural beings that they were and that you are. Mark Twain is rumored to have said, "If you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspapers, you are misinformed." Now, whether he actually said that or not, that idea, that sentiment is even more true today than it was in Twain's time. We are constantly being told through commercial advertising, through our education system, through the media and the so-called news, that we are to be afraid. That's their job, is to keep humanity in fear. Fear of often imaginary threats, and especially fear of our own internal greatness. The goal of the Master the Science of Miracles system is to reacquaint you with who you truly are and to give you a series of steps, a system that you can use right now, today, to reclaim that amazing person that you are meant to be. Sadly, the descendants of these keepers of the ancient science have kept it a closely held secret throughout the ages. Rather than sharing it, they have kept it in their local communities. That is, until around the middle part of the 19th century. Well, what happened in the middle part of the 19th century? Something amazing occurred. There was a resurgence of curiosity and a resurgence in the belief that humanity was much more than we have ever been allowed to believe it is. That you are much more than you have ever been allowed to believe that you are. With this reemergence, with this resurfacing of this ancient science, elements of that science have begun to appear. They sometimes appeared through painstaking research. Researchers, anthropologists, began to wonder about the practices of some of these extraordinary cultures. In other cases, it came through direct inspiration. And in very rare cases, the reemergence of elements of this ancient science occurred because certain people were allowed to live among the descendants of the keepers of this ancient science. So the question is, are these modern day self-help systems we're all very much aware of, are they actually elements of this ancient science? For instance, there are systems based on what we have come to know as the law of attraction. Now, the law of attraction states that you can manifest or you can create in your life whatever you focus your attention on. For some people, it's worked very well. For other people, not so much. Now, if you're one of those people who has been able to use the law of attraction to affect great change in your life, then congratulations, you are indeed an extraordinary person. Then there are systems which teach that being able to access what we call inner conscious levels is the key to being able to affect transformation in your life. In fact, people who ascribe to these systems have realized that in order to make the law of attraction work, they need to be at these deeper brainwave states. And research has shown that the thoughts we focus on in these deeper brainwave states, what scientists call the alpha brainwave state or the theta brainwave state, and there are others, the thoughts we focus on when we're at these deeper brainwave states have a greater effect on physical reality than those same thoughts focused on at the outer beta brainwave state, which is where I am right now and probably where you are too as you're watching this program. Then there are systems that don't really seem to have that much to do with personal transformation or of creating your life the way you want it. These are systems that are based on breath, on mental concentration, on meditation. Now, some of these systems are Chinese Qigong or Tai Chi. Certain elements of yoga contain elements of this process. And while these breath and mind-based systems may not seem at first blush to have much to do with personal transformation, as we begin to examine them, we discover they have a great deal to do with transmuting our thoughts into our physical reality. I'm going to say that again, of transmuting our thoughts into our physical reality. Finally, there are systems that might be called prayer-based systems. Now, we're all, or most people, are familiar with prayer as a religious practice, but far fewer are familiar with the idea of prayer as a secular act. In fact, modern-day philosopher and author Greg Braden has written quite a bit about this phenomenon, and cultures that have used this secular prayer practice have been able to create amazing changes of fortune in their health, in their prosperity, and in their social climate. So what if all of these systems were intended to be components of that original ancient science, rather than being separate, isolated systems? What if these systems were intended to be part of one holistic system? That's exactly what Master the Science of Miracles is. Now, the sad truth of the matter is that the majority of people are not living lives of prosperity, of vibrant good health, and of happiness and fellowship. And again, I know this sounds cynical, but the fact of the matter is that these flames of frustration, anxiety, and fear are being fanned by what we're being constantly immersed in by the media. We're being constantly told that if we don't use this and such product, we can't really be happy. We can't really be among the cool people if we don't think this way or buy this way. And these same entities that are designed to keep us in fear have always been telling us that tales of these keepers of the ancient science that have been able to create such amazing transformations are nothing more than myths or pipe dreams. And I'm here to tell you with a straight face that nothing could be further from the truth. So what is this ancient science anyway? Well, the science that this ancient culture possessed was a working understanding of the three parts of the human experience. We are all composed of three beings in one. Now, I know we like to think that we're a body carrying around a brain that makes all of our decisions for us. And that's only a very small part of the truth. The truth is that we are far, far more than that. So before I proceed, let's define what a miracle is. The Merriam-Webster Unabridged Dictionary defines a miracle as an accomplishment or occurrence so outstanding or unusual as to seem beyond human capability or endeavor. Now, let me explain why I believe that definition is completely false. It's a definition which has an agenda. In point of fact, nothing is beyond human capability or endeavor. We have been made to believe that it is. And in the words of the late Jose Silva, what you believe is your reality. We've all been educated to believe that we are ordinary, that we are just a little bit more than smart monkeys. And of course, there's a reason for that. Because if we realized how powerful we truly are, we would not be needful of anything. Think about that. Any culture that does not live in fear is impossible to oppress and impossible to control. Now, the key to unlocking this power is learning how to unite and harmonize those three parts of our being, because each part plays a role. And as we understand how each part communicates, then we begin to be able to recruit the power of all three of these parts and become a total human being. Now, to amplify and to explain the idea of these three parts of the human being, let's take a look at this symbol that you see on the screen right now. This is an adaptation of an ancient symbol that describes this entire process of unifying our three selves into one being. Now, as you can see, there are two circles, an infinity sign, curved lines that connect the middle circle to the lower circle, and a curved line that connects the lower circle to the infinity sign. And finally, there are some dashed lines, very fine dashed lines, that go from the infinity sign to the middle circle. So let's talk about that middle circle for a moment. That middle circle represents what the ancients called the conscious self. And the lower circle represents what the ancients called the subconscious self. Now, this conscious self and this subconscious self are what famous psychiatrists Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud referred to as the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The belief in the practice of these ancient these ancient cultures was that they are much more than minds. They're actually individual beings that unite, interconnect, and cooperate to make the person that you see when you look in the mirror. Now, the conscious self is the part of us that thinks linearly. It uses logic. It uses reason. It communicates using language. It balances the checkbook. But most importantly, for our purposes here in the Master of the Science of Miracles system, the conscious self is the part of us that generates ideas. And I'll explain this in great detail in subsequent episodes of Master of the Science of Miracles. Now, as you may have guessed already, the lower circle represents the subconscious self. Now, the subconscious self is very mysterious and very enigmatic. It's very mysterious because it does not communicate using language. Whatever your first language is, your subconscious mind does not communicate using that. So in my case, my first language is English. It does not communicate using English. It communicates using emotion, using memories, and using a few other things. Inspirations, for instance, come through the subconscious self to the conscious self, and we largely ignore those promptings from our subconscious self, and we do so at our own peril. Now, our subconscious self controls and administers every involuntary function in the body. So your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your digestion, movement of lymph, death and recreation of new cells. Everything is controlled by your subconscious self. It also remembers and stores everything you have ever experienced, everything you have seen, everything you have heard, everything you have felt, smelled, and tasted from the time of your birth right up to the present moment is stored in your subconscious self. As powerful as a subconscious self is, it is also very susceptible to suggestion. And this is suggestion both from the outside influences, the media, what our friends say, the news, bulletins from the government. Those are all outside influences. And from inside influence as well, our own personal self-talk most especially. And that, when you understand that, you can begin to see why multinational corporations spend so many billions of dollars on advertising that recruits and influences your subconscious, because your subconscious is the part of you that drives the bus of your life. It is in control of our life. Now, I know we'd all love to believe that I'm consciously in control of my life. Well, I'm afraid to say you're not. The majority of people live their lives on autopilot. Have you ever noticed that you drive to work using the same route all the time? That you fall into habits in life. And as these habits form, and they're not bad necessarily, but as they form, we begin to do them over and over again. And so our subconscious is driving the bus all the time. What's even more interesting is that the subconscious has the mental capacity, if we give it a personality, it has the mental capacity of a younger sibling, a 9 or 10-year-old sibling, which desperately wants to please the conscious part of ourselves. It can be moody, temperamental, a huge pain in the backside, just like a younger sibling can be. These are all the characteristics of the subconscious self. Most importantly, for our purposes, the subconscious self is the sole and only channel of access between our conscious self and our transcendent self, which is indicated in that figure by the infinity sign. Now, the transcendent self, that's the part of us that's even more mysterious. It's the part of us that is created in the image of the creator of all that is. Now, whether you call that creator God, Allah, Yahweh, the universe, doesn't matter what you call it. That is the image that our transcendent self is created in. And it desperately wants to participate in our lives here in this 3D world of dense matter. But we have to ask it to. We have to invite it to. And we do that all the time. The problem is that most people ask for what they don't want rather than what they want. Don't worry. I'm going to be talking about this in great detail in subsequent episodes. We're going to cover each one of these segments of the 3 parts of ourselves and give you a system that you can use again and again and again once you understand this amazing system that we all are. Then you can use it anytime you want to because it's you. Those curved lines in the symbol represent channels of energy. Now, energy, as we're using it for our purposes here, is another very mysterious part of the human experience. And because it is so mysterious and so foreign to most Westerners, that's the first thing I teach when I teach the Master of the Science of Miracles system. As our conscious self creates ideas of what it is we want to do, what we want to be, what we want to have. We send those ideas on a stream of energy from our conscious self to our subconscious self. And if you're wondering why it is, and when I talk about the conscious self, I point to my head, or the subconscious self, I gesture at my body, the late biochemist, microbiologist, Candace Pert, pointed out in her book, Molecules of Emotion, that the subconscious mind, using her parlance, is actually distributed throughout the body. And we're going to talk about that to great effect in subsequent episodes of Master of the Science of Miracles. Similarly, That curved line that goes from the subconscious self to the transcendent self is another channel of energy. Those dashed lines that go from the transcendent self, from the infinity sign to the middle circle, that's an amazing and wonderful phenomenon, which the ancients called the rain of blessings. Now, in the process of creating the image, the idea of what your desired outcome is, in other words, whatever it is you want to do, you want to be, or to have, once you have sent that through your subconscious self to your transcendent self, and once your transcendent self receives and accepts your request, you begin to experience the rain of blessings. And this can range anywhere from a light tingling around the crown of the head or tingling in the fingers, all the way to nearly overwhelming feelings of gratitude, of joy, of love that seem to come from nowhere. One of my early students who learned how to use this process contacted me, and she said, "Ron, I think I'm going nuts." And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "Every time I do what you said, I go to this quiet place, this meditative state that I'm going to teach you how to do too. Every time I go there and I begin to think about what I desire the way you told me to, within 30 seconds, my eyes are just flooding with tears. And I'm overwhelmed with this sense of joy. I don't know what's going on." I said, "Well, congratulations, my darling. You have been touched by your transcendent self. That is the rain of blessings." In bringing this system to you, in bringing Master the Science of Miracles to you, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, because so many people that have gone before me have paved the way, have resonated with this spirit of the age, the spirit of enlightenment that emerged in the middle part of the 20th century. I would be remiss to not pay homage to them here. Luminaries such as Abdu'l-Baha, Max Freedom Long, Jose Silva, world-famous energy healer Donna Eden, Raymond Grace, C.W. Leadbeater, and George Gurdjieff. Now, as I mentioned previously, in the next episode, I'm going to go into detail about energy, how it animates our bodies, and how we can cultivate and build up the excess charge of energy that we need to be able to make this process work. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've had as much fun watching this program as I have had presenting it to you. And until next week, until next episode, make miracles an ordinary part of your life. Bye-bye for now.